Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Pedalshift Project. The Pedalshift Project is a series of conversations, thoughts, and experiments around the bike touring lifestyle. From tips and tricks to ideas on how to ride your ride. Let's shrink the world by bike. Show notes and more are at pedalshift.net/130, and you can email the show, pedalshift@pedalshift.net, or call the voicemail hotline 202-930-1109, and check Pedalshift on all the socials as well. Hello, everybody. This is Tim Mooney back with episode 130 of the Pedalshift Project. So glad you could be with us on this fine episode. On this episode, it's a full kind of breakdown of my preparation for my next big tour, which is to the Oregon coast with a twist, as I talked about a couple of episodes ago on the live show. And I'm pretty excited that for the most part, it's coming together as planned. I'm in the middle of this weird week. So I got back from Paris, a couple of days ago as I'm sitting here recording. And the week is a really busy one because I've got to get a ton of work done for a variety of different clients. I haven't really talked about this a lot. I kind of do some lawyering stuff. I got to do some design stuff. I do a little bit of everything. I was in Paris doing some work stuff there with Kimberly, of course. But I've got a few websites I'm trying to get done before I leave so I can focus completely on the ride, which would be really, really great. So busy week. But that being said, it's not too busy to kind of get all my stuff in order because on Monday, when I leave for the great state of Oregon, I want to kind of have all of my stuff really ready to go, kind of at least in my head, if not fully packed together. And that's where the show comes in because I'm able to kind of share it with you. So let's kind of jump into it. As I mentioned on the past episode, this is a modified full Oregon coast ride. And it's modified in the sense that I'm not going to be riding every single mile of it, although I conceivably could have if I just had some more time, or if I wanted to annoy anybody in Portland and not see anybody. I could have done it if I just basically flown to Portland, stayed one quick overnight, and then done the whole coast, and then got back and then flown right out. That wouldn't have gone over well with friends and family. So I am going to do it in a little bit more of a modified way. Spend a day or two on, actually it's kind of like a day and a half or 2 days-ish on both ends of the trip, and sort of begin and end, well, it's a loop with transit going in and out of Portland. The riding is going to be focused from Newport south, and then things get a little nutty from there. So pull out your maps of the great state of Oregon. You probably have a well dog-eared version of it by now, if you've been following this pod, because I talk about the Oregon coast quite a bit. I'm going to be taking the Northwest Connector buses from Portland to Tillamook, then to Lincoln City, and then to Newport on my first day. So it's a very transit-heavy day. I'll be leaving Portland right before noon, and I'll be getting into Newport about 5 o'clock. Now, there is an outside chance that I may ditch that and go with a one-way car rental like I did last year around this time. Or did I do that in the fall? It all blends together. I think I did that in the fall. I'm thinking that I may do the bus, not because it's easier, because it certainly isn't. That's a 3-bus kind of thing. The one thing that I get out of it is that I can purchase my 7-day pass for the buses that I'm going to be using, especially on the return trip in Portland, and have that on me, and then not have to stress about it at all. It's really interesting. The 3-day pass is $25. The 7-day pass is $30. And it gets you basically a ride out from Portland to the coast, and then unlimited riding on the coast, and then a trip back to Portland from the coast, which is kind of fantastic and a really good value. And I know that the one-way car rental would be probably more than twice that, and perhaps even more. I haven't even checked on prices on that. So I think I just by the nature of the fact that I'm planning on taking the bus back anyways, I'm just going to do it on the way out as well, even though the timing on that may not be as efficient. That's all fine. So it's a day on the bus traveling the first day. And then I'll be spending my first night at South Beach State Park, which is just south of Newport. I've talked about South Beach State Park a ton. I really, really dig it. It's a fantastic place to go to. And, course, Rogue's Brewers on the Bay. From there, it's the typical ride south. I'll be going to Honeyman State Park outside of Florence, then Sunset Bay State Park outside of North Bend, Humbug Mountain State Park outside of Port Orford, and then it gets fun. So the next day is the border run. I'll be starting off at Humbug Mountain, just like normal. And I will be going to, Harris Beach State Park, which is actually not that far away. It's only 40-something miles away, give or take. And I think that I'm going to get in, set up camp, and go unloaded for the rest of the day, because I do have about maybe 40 more miles round trip. I take that back. It's probably not even that. It's probably closer to like maybe 20 or 25, I should say, because it's not that far from Harris Beach State Park to the California border. So the idea is that I'll jam right down to the California border, tag the sign, get some pictures, boom, Oregon coast done. Mission accomplished, except for the whole return trip. You know the whole thing about mountain climbing, once you get to the peak and you're only half done? Ditto. I would like to get back, right? So once I hit the California border, that's when this whole trip sort of takes shape. You know, can I use transit and bike to get back? So I'm going to then turn myself around, go back. There's a Fred Meyer in Brookings. I'll probably pick up some stuff for dinner that night, go back to Harris Beach State Park, and have a nice dinner, have a little celebration, enjoy things, and go to bed early. Because the next morning, I have to get up pretty early. Sunrise is around 6 a.m. That's going to become important later in a moment here. And I've got a 7:20 a.m. bus out of Brookings, which will get me all the way up to North Bend. That's over 3.5 hours of bus riding. But it's an important 3.5 hours because that gets me up several days worth of riding northbound. Once I'm up to North Bend, I still have some work to do. So I'll be getting up there around 11 in the morning. And originally, when I talked about this before, the plan was that I was going to go to another state park and do 60-ish miles, give or take, and have about 11 to 13 left at the end of the day. Here's the problem. Sunrise. The bus that I have to catch in Yachats is at 7 a.m. And although 13 miles on flats should take me roughly an hour, there are some hills of note between, I think it's Washburn State Park and Yachats. And I just thought it would be a little dicey, especially going northbound, to be doing that even with lights. It's a really windy area around Cape Perpetua, and that whole area, it's gorgeous. It's amazing. It's beautiful, but it's probably not my cup of tea to do in the wee hours of the morning, pre-sunrise, pre-twilight even. So I decided that what I'm going to do is I'm going to bang out a lot of miles on that final biking day for me. And I'm going to go all the way from North Bend up to Yachats. That's 73 miles, and it's not insignificant terrain. There's some really windy, crazy roads there. I'll be doing it northbound, which means that the prevailing winds are going to be against me. So that's going to be a day. That's going to be a really crazy day. I'm going to wake up in Brookings and end up in Yachats by the end of the day. And if all goes right, I figure I should be rolling into Yachats before sunset. Yeah, sunset's in the 8 o'clock hour, like 8:30, closer to 9 o'clock. And because there's no camping specifically in Yachats, I'm going to end up getting, I've got an Airbnb basically for that night. And, the next morning, like I said, the bus leaves at 7 a.m. So after probably sleeping the sleep of champions, I am going to be getting up stupid early again and then grabbing a series of buses all the way back to Portland, starting at 7 a.m. in Yachats, going to Newport, then to Lincoln City, then to Tillamook, and then back to Portland. I'll be in Portland by 3 p.m. Kind of amazing, kind of really cool. Not easy by any stretch of the imagination. And that last kind of northbound push is really, I'm going to say for me, a bit of a challenge. I tend to not like to do above 70 miles in any given day when there's terrain involved. Now, here's the bonus. It's the very last day of real riding for me. I'll have had some pretty chill days in there by my calculations. So I don't think it's going to be so bad. The other thing is something I'm going to be talking about in a moment. I'm going to be riding, I think, in an easier way now too. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But overall, I'm super excited about the route and everything. I wish that I could probably add maybe a couple of days to this. That's why this is all sort of, I don't know. I'm taking the ride with the time that I've got. I have these 10 days. I want to be able to do some stuff in Portland. I want to be able to get in a good ride. I wanted to test out this northbound transit return option because I know so many people want to do the Oregon coast. And I thought that this seemed like a really cool way to test this out for those of you who are interested in doing it without having to deal with going all the way down into California or whatever. I'm excited to test all of this out. So that's what we're going to do. The big change, as I mentioned, is that northbound day is going to be a bit longer. As I mentioned, the sunrise, et cetera, I'm just looking at my show notes here. I already said all of this, so I'm just going to skip on forward here. Hopefully, as I mentioned before, the prevailing winds will be coming from the north, so hopefully it won't be too windy. I will say I have never, and I'm racking my brain right now, have I ever gone northbound? I have gone northbound once in all of my years in Oregon cycling the coast. And that was when I was staying at South Beach State Park one night and I went into town to get food and came back. So really, I mean, I think it's like 2 miles. So, and no terrain there. So this is going to be my first time doing any substantial amount of cycling northbound on the Oregon coast. Tons of people do it. Well, tons of people. 10% roughly. I think that was the figure that's been bandied about. I don't know if it's based on any reality or anything like that, but not a lot of people go northbound for any real period of time on the Oregon coast, and I'll be doing it. One of the issues with going northbound is that, of course, you're on a side that isn't catered to as much for cycling. So often shoulders will be better on the southbound side than on the northbound side. Nowhere is that more true than in the section that I'm going to be doing, which is another great reason for me to be doing this fully in daylight and not doing any of it at night at all. So let's talk about my pack list real quick, because I think this is a really critical part of what's going to make this tour kind of fun. I am going to be going stove and cook kit free. I talked about this on a past show. This allows me to experiment with what I'm calling a modified bike packing setup. And I'm not going to be bringing my 2 main panniers. I'll have 3 dry bags instead that will carry all of my gear, and they'll sit in line with the bike, making the whole setup substantially more aero, for lack of a better word, and definitely a lot lighter because I'm going to be carrying a lot less stuff. I'm adding a new wrinkle also to the front rack. I haven't quite figured out exactly how it's going to end up, but I'm going to be basically adding a secondary kind of set of handlebars, for lack of a better way of putting it. You may have seen people having this in their cockpit. I'm actually just going to be kind of zip tying this down to my front rack, and it's going to be wide enough on the left and on the right to add 2 pieces of, gear, basically. The first thing I'm going to put on the left-hand side is a mirror. One of the struggles that I have with the butterfly handlebars on my touring bikes is mirrors don't really work real well. I use all of the handlebars. So I'm going to be trying to putting this extra flat bar on there, hoping that I get a better sense of the road because the mirror will be there and I get to use the handlebars on the left side exactly the way that I want. I've worked around mirrors before. I don't really like it. It's, I get used to it, but I definitely know that it takes away some hand positions. And I think that it will be good to have the extra hand positions. So I'm going to give it a shot. On the right hand side, I'm going to put basically my iPhone holder. I think that that's going to be used maybe for shooting some videos. I don't know how well it's going to work. It's probably going to be really vibratey, now an actual word. So we'll see how that goes. At the very least, I think it's going to be super helpful to have that mirror down there, and that will allow me the extra hand positions, and that's all the bonuses there. I want to talk a little bit about the dry bags. I've used for years the event bags, which I really, really dig, that you can squeeze out all the air really easily from them once you're even sealed up. It lets air out, but no water in. Awesome. And to replace the two large orange panniers, I got another dry bag, a larger dry bag. That's kind of a more typical one. It's a much more heavyweight one. I considered briefly getting the extra large event, but I thought, you know what? I need something orange. So I got an orange dry bag that's a little bit thicker, a little bit more heavy duty, and we'll see how that all goes. So I wanted to just sort of rattle out my pack list just because I think that it's going to be helpful to give you an idea of how things are going to be going in it. Dry bag number one is kind of my sleep kit bag, and that's what I use really for any kind of touring setup that I've got. It's going to be my sleeping bag, my pad, inflatable pad, my pillow, and my sleep clothes. That's all going to be in one dry bag. That's the same as normal. The other event bag is going to have things like my rain jacket, my clothing, including my convertible rain pants, my sun sleeves, if I'm not wearing them. These are all if I'm not wearing them. Flip-flops, which I tend to use in camp afterward. A spare shirt, a spare set of shorts, maybe, spare underwear, socks, and my toiletry kit. That's all going to be in dry bag number 2. The top 2 bag, the one I almost left behind in well, controversial what happened in Missouri. Let's just put it that way. The frame bag that, the top 2 bag that ended up being left behind, it will have the spare tube, basically all my tools, patch kit, wallet, iPhone, battery, things like that. My frame bag is going to be freed up because so much stuff is going to be elsewhere. That'll be snacks and things that I would ordinarily put in a handlebar bag. And in this setup, I don't have a handlebar bag. The large dry bag, the new one, is going to contain my tent, my seat back. I think I've talked about this before. It was actually, it's really old. It's a little contraption that you're supposed to use with the old school Thermarest pads, which, my Thermarests are long gone by now. They've given up the ghost over years of camping. But I'm able to use it just kind of on its own, and it basically rolls up. It's very small and very lightweight, and it's great to have as a seat back inside the tent at night. Occasionally that can be helpful. So that'll have the tent, the seat back, the pump if necessary, although I may put the pump in my frame bag. And then my spork, although I'm carrying no cooking kit, I'm going to bring spork in case I get things like salads or any kind of thing that I'm going to need a utensil to eat with. And hat if I'm not going to be wearing it. I will be bringing a helmet and will be wearing a helmet on this ride. That, of course, and some other things that'll be on me. I'll be wearing clothing, pants, shirts, socks, shoes, underwear, and the helmet. Of course, I think I'm going to rock 3 water bottles just like normal and bring a lock as well. Unfortunately, I think I mentioned in the Missouri shows, I lost my auto lock on the Katy Trail someplace, and I'm so bummed about that. I really liked that lock for touring. I do have a folding lock that's probably going to come with me because it is a lighter option than my U-lock, but I just haven't decided yet. I have to say I don't like keyed locks. I am much happier with combination locks, and my U-lock is a combination lock. So I'm going to have to decide what I'm going to do with that. It's a little bit more weight and it's a little bit more annoying, but U-locks are a lot more secure. I tend not to have that many issues on the coast where I feel like things are insecure. In Brookings, sometimes I feel a little dicey at that Fred Meyer. I don't know why, but I don't know. It's certainly something that I'll need in Portland, so maybe I'll bring along the U-lock. Maybe I'm convincing myself. We'll have to see what's going on. But in any event, the way that it's going to be set up, I'm hoping to do a video that may or may not be out before I leave for Oregon, but I'm hoping that I'll show the setup on YouTube before too long. But essentially, there'll be, I think, 2 dry bags on the back and 1 on the front. And I believe it's going to be the larger orange dry bag on the back and then the 2 smaller event bags on the front. Just sort of depends on weight distribution and how things all go. They'll all be bungeed down really securely, of course. And then everything else. And what you end up with is essentially, while yes, there's certainly some non-aerodynamic elements to all of this, and bike packers certainly have a much lighter load than this. This is going to be the first time that I'm going to be riding a multi-100-mile ride, particularly on the Oregon coast, where I'm not going to have a lot of side profile. And I think that's going to be good on 2 levels. Number one, Again, lighter. Number 2, less wind resistance. And I've often wondered, do I get benefits going southbound where I've got a prevailing wind at my back, a tailwind? When I do have the panniers, I guess you would have to think you do, because I certainly feel it when I've got a headwind. I think where it's going to be really helpful, even though I might be losing some advantage on the southbound ride, I think that on the northbound ride, at least I'm going to cut through the wind a little bit better than I would with the 2 side panniers. Overall, it's a big experiment in transit. It's a little bit of a stunt in that way too. It's also a chance to see the Oregon coast once again. And I'm really looking forward to seeing it and being able to do that in the heat of the summer. It's so muggy here in DC. It was so hot in Paris. I'm really looking forward to having some days that top out in the 60s and nights in the 50s. I think it'll be a lot of fun, and it'll be really, really nice to have that. And it's an old friend going out there. So it's really cool. Quick reminder that next week we're going to be doing a best of while I'm on the road. And then over the course of the several weeks after that, I don't know how many episodes it's going to be, but it's going to be essentially a Tour Journals Volume 11, all about the Oregon coast. So really excited to be sharing that all with you. Stay tuned to all of the social feeds, especially on Instagram. I'll be putting up pictures and other things as well. YouTube, potentially, if I can get a video up before we leave. But I'm also hoping to do a video version of the Tour Journals as well. And we like to end off the show, as always, with a big thank you to the supporters of the show, who are members of the Pedalshift Society. If you like what you hear, you can help maintain Pedalshift as an independent, listener-supported voice while expanding the offerings. We're talking $1, $2, $5 a month. Helps with the cost of hosting the podcast and the website. You can do it for a bit and cancel anytime. One-shot support is welcome as well. If you're not into the small monthly thing, check it all out at pedalshift.net/society. On to the society. Ethan Georgie, Kimberly Wilson, Caleb Jenkinson, Cameron Lane, Andrew McGregor, Michael Hart, Josiah Matthews, Keith Nagel, Brock Dittis, Thomas Skadow, Seth Krieger, Marco Lowe, Terrence Manson, Noah Schroer, Harry Telgadas, John Sikorsky, Richard Killian, Chris Barron, Brian Wren, Mark Van Ram, Brad Hipwell, Paul Mulvey, Stuart Buchan, Todd Stutz, Mr. T, Roxy Arning, Nathan Poulton, Harry Hugel, Stephen Dickerson, Vince LaGreco, Ruth Divorcey, Michelle Miller, Matthew Lewis, Michael Baker, Billy Crafton, Paul Culbertson, Scott Culbertson, Matt Perry, Danielle Jepson, Cody Florchinger, Tom Beninati, Bobby Ruppel, Roy Everett, Greg Braithwaite, John Mayer, William Cairns, Sandy Pizzio, Richard Patch, Mark Messer, Jeff Muster, Seth Pollock, Dave Roll, Joseph Quinn, John Baxter, and Susan Brewster. And thanks also to all past contributors and anonymous contributors for helping make this show happen. Thank you for joining. You can find Pedalshift at pedalshift.net for more great bicycle touring content. You can hear the Pedalshift Project through Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Opening music courtesy of Jason Kent off his self-titled album. The track is called America. Check out his band Sunfield's latest release, Mono Mono, wherever cool music is available.